And here it's weird because I can't see if they can stop recording.
I know.
So I just not touch it. Okay.
Is your computer charged?
Yeah. Welcome back to Good Moms Bad Choices. I'm Erica.
And I'm Mila.
And we are in New York.
Hi!
I'm so excited. We come back again. Our last time we in New York, we did an episode with Weezy from Horrible Decisions. And fast forward to a year, basically a year later, now we're down again. And New York has been cool. This weekend has been a lot of drinking for me. This is the first time I've been to New York. I'm like just a chill, not working in years. So like I don't know that.
You're acting quiet.
But somehow I'm not hungover. Me and Mila went to I don't know what we did last night for no reason.
I went to like a shady liquor store after hours. I got like a bottle of Patron from a small window.
It was very shady. But yeah, I don't know what we were doing there. But anyway, I'm here. We're here. And we have a special guest. We have Alex. I don't know. Did we go just Alex Undone?
Alex Undone. Alexandra, Alex. Just not Lex or Lexi.
You take those abbreviations around.
Is that a puppy?
Yeah, because they come from people on the internet that have never met me. I know for a fact I've never introduced myself to anybody as Lex ever. So I'm already like, I don't know you.
They're like, oh, you're trying to, you know me.
Yeah.
Not even my nickname.
Right.
But I've been following Alex for a while on Instagram. I don't know how I found you. Just your beautiful face. Like,
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I was like, who's this beautiful human?
I'll take it.
And then I realized that you were a parent. I don't even know if I started before I was even a parent. Who knows? But then I realized you were a parent, and you're on a single parent journey, just like me and Jamila. And I was like, oh my God, it'd be so cool to come on. So thank you.
Yes, I'm so glad. My pleasure, absolutely.
Thank you for traveling. On
Yeah.
6 hours. I was like, damn, that's kind of far.
Well, because we hit you up, I originally thought you were out here.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, that's all good. But you're here. You made it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, you guys being moms, I didn't want to pass on this either because these are the people that need to be leading these kinds of conversations. Right. So many other people like to talk about motherhood, and they don't have any experience to contribute to the pod. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation.
So how old is your daughter?
My daughter is 8.
She's 8.
Oh, Scorpio.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Wait, what's your sign?
I'm Pisces, but she's Scorpio November 17th.
Oh, she's
nice.
Real deal, Scorpio.
Spicy.
I'm October 25th. Yeah.
October's good.
Are we?
I thought they were milder. I thought you were milder.
Well, I was actually raised. I think it's also been raised by Libra. Like all those things take. And also, if you're really into astrology, the moon sign, the rising sign.
That exact time you were born.
Are you into astrology?
Kind of, sort of. I don't think it's going to dictate my day, depending on how the clouds are aligned. But some of the
trends,
some of the traits, the character traits, I think are really helpful if you use them in terms of compatibility. Now, compatibility doesn't mean that we're synced to be in a relationship. Co-workers can be compatible, but I do think there's some truth there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're all compatible because we're all water signs, Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio.
Yes.
So, yeah, this is a flowing situation here.
Sure is. So sometimes we play this game with guests. It's called Trigger.
Okay.
And it's just an easy icebreaker so that we can get to know you quickly. Our guests can get to know who you are quickly. I mean, obviously they won't know everything. So just basically the game is you say a word and you say the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so this is Trigger. I need to put that that we did in our live show.
Yeah, definitely do.
Alex, I'm done.
Ready?
I think so.
All right. Date of birth.
February 19th.
Favorite color?
Blue.
Highlight.
Hero.
Aladdin.
Ooh.
Naomi Campbell.
She's flawless.
Croissant versus bagels.
Bagels.
Boxers or briefs? Sexuality.
Fluid.
Trump.
Ugh. Is that a word?
Pretty much what it describes him as a lover of money. The shade room.
What's in the tea?
Beyonce or Solange? Why would you whisper? Is anyone gonna hear this?
Oh no, because either way it
No,
goes, I
no,
feel like
no.
I'm letting people down. Like there's the
The
beehive.
beehives
I'm
are
like, oh
coming.
my god. And there's people that are like, what? No, how could you? So
Identity.
Sorry. So much comes to mind, I can't limit it to one word. Identity,
Mother.
mothering comes to mind.
Father.
Essential.
The Kardashians.
Next.
Vagina.
Love it.
Birth.
Hard.
Family.
Vital.
Fuckboy.
No too many.
Instagram models.
You know, there's room for everybody, but there's a lot of people fucking up the money right now.
LA.
Narcissists.
Oh, okay. Do you know that's where we're from? Top model. Gucci.
Are we still supporting them or boycotting them?
I think they're still crossed out. Childhood.
Traumatizing.
Pregnancy.
Traumatizing.
Body dysmorphia.
For the longest, I didn't think that was the title to describe me, but it might be.
Self-care.
Daily.
Just so scared. The mic is acting crazy.
Triggers.
Identifying them.
Women.
Love them.
Man.
I love them too.
Plastic surgery.
For it.
They're stressing me out on provide. Politics.
I used to not be for it, but it's a privilege to not be for it.
Sex.
Should I have more of it?
Celibacy.
Not for everyone.
Single mom.
It's a journey.
Michael Jackson.
I'm still on the fence. I
Self-
haven't seen the documentary yet.
that's documentary.
Yeah.
Self-harm.
Relatable, unfortunately.
Therapy.
I'm in therapy. It's so good. I'm a huge advocate of therapy.
Oprah.
Mama.
Text or call.
Text.
Passion.
Dying.
Insecurity.
Growing.
True love.
Rare.
Fantasy.
It's misconstrued for reality.
Idol.
Time.
Pet peeve. Biggest regret.
Not going to college, not finishing college.
Favorite porn category. I just threw that in there. That wasn't even right now.
You know,
That's a good one,
interestingly enough, I found myself watching guy-on-guy porn because the girl-on-girl porn, I feel like, was made for men. So any real lesbian or bi person watching it can't relate because it's so. I mean, obviously, it's porn; it's all performative. But I watch it. Dude.
Yeah, I'm not a lesbian porn watcher myself. I do like watching it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not really popular when you tell people. I can't really. I'm happy you confessed because last time.
Wait, never mind. I don't think we can watch porn together.
Yeah.
This isn't gonna work out.
I don't know. I've watched like guy, not into it. No,
I don't really know what my obsession is with it either. It's not my only category, but it's
It's like it's a go-to for you.
maybe, yeah. along with some other weird shit. So
Right.
I probably need to dissect
I
that.
think it's equal parts like fascination and curiosity.
Yeah.
And then,
Like aggressive.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're
they're
like
hardcore.
really, they are.
I mean, they're men.
Yeah.
Right.
I would assume. I'm just gonna check this thing. Just
Okay.
to make sure everything's cool.
Wait, what was your childhood trigger? What did you say?
I probably said traumatizing.
Traumatizing. Because your childhood was traumatizing, or because childhood could be traumatizing, period. Like,
No, I had a good childhood overall. I just had so many feelings I didn't know what to do with. I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know how to express what I was feeling. So I think that a lot of my experiences were harder than they had to be. Because I didn't have the support because nobody knew that I needed it. I was so good at covering my tracks and smiling through everything.
Are you an only child?
No, I'm in the middle of three.
Oh, okay. I thought something.
what's that middle child? I'm just kidding.
I know they say something about that middle child.
Yeah, I was
It's
gonna
always
say
kinda-
So you said you were good at covering and acting.
Yeah. My mom found out half the stuff that went on with me when she joined Instagram as of late because I'm more expressive as a writer than I am when I speak or just, I don't know, with family members, people I care about. There's a lot that I don't share. So when she got on Instagram and read my captions and really saw how transparent and vulnerable I was, she was like, wow. Also, ouch, I didn't know.
Nice. I mean, I'm a parent. I would feel like what could I have done?
Right.
And so where did you grow up again?
I grew up in Germany. Yeah.
Germany.
Dad was Army, so I was a military brat, and my mom is German, so one of the
So your dad met your mom while he was like out there.
two. He was stationed out there. She was working for the German military at the time. They met at some nightclub off base, and the rest is history. Yeah.
And they're still married now.
Mhm.
Wow, beautiful. So what's your ethnicity? You're German and
And black.
yeah.
Thank you.
Don't I have another friend that's German?
You speak German?
I do.
So you guys speak German?
You can say like the German word for beer is the same as it is in English. I'm beer, you just spell it differently. So you can do like a few words like that. That don't require much effort.
Yeah. That sounds like a lot of effort right there. That would sound like beer.
Beer.
No,
Yeah.
Okay, I know what to do. Like it's Germany. You said your daughter's 8.
Yes.
So, because you feel like you didn't talk a lot growing up, or there was feelings that you couldn't process, how has that affected like how you're mothering her, so that like your transparency seeps into that?
I am really mindful. I am very observant because in some ways she doesn't express either, and I feel like she's a lot like me. And then I also don't want to. We have the tendency to think that our kids need what we need, and that's not always the case. So, right. So that's just something that I try to watch out for. But I notice when she's discontent, and I try to give her a few minutes to herself, so that she can process her own feelings, and then I knock on the door and I say, okay, we have to have this conversation right now. Because I don't want it to go unaddressed because I know what happened to me when my feelings went unaddressed.
How old were you when you had it?
I was 19.
Were you in a relationship? How's your relationship now? Still parenting?
We were both fresh out of high school. We had been out of high school for a year, and he was set to go to the military. And when he was off in basic training, that's when I found out that I was pregnant. So I had to call him and told him via phone. It was a very short relationship. My heart wasn't in it. I didn't know what love was. I hadn't even compare it to. I knew it wasn't this fairy tale feeling that, would overcome you and that it was something you had to work for. So I thought that with her dad, okay, well, maybe we just have to work at it. But what I know now is that you should feel something. Even if it's just like a little spark, you might have to work to keep that spark, but you should feel
So
something.
there was no spark
There
at all
wasn't.
from the beginning?
There wasn't.
Was it like your high school sweetheart?
No, not even. And unfortunately, her dad, he was really infatuated with me in the beginning. But what that meant for me was that I never had an opportunity to catch up. Because while I'm still trying to figure out if I like you or how invested I am, he was in love. And I was never able to catch up to that. So,
Does he have other kids now? Or?
no, he's married. We have a court order in place, so we handle it that way. And she sees him a few times a year.
This is that close.
Not at all. Military family.
Oh, so over.
Yeah, so he's in Texas.
Oh, how was that? Like, so he's remarried, and you had to send her with him like a few times a year. Have you met that wife?
Yeah, that was it's so crazy because I never saw my life going this way. By no means do I
I don't think anybody.
it's just like what you think was gonna happen and then what actually happens. Not that I regret my daughter at all. I didn't think that I would come into motherhood this way. She was Lily's stepmom and her dad were both stationed together and got married while they were away. So I had to be the one to tell Lily, hey, not only is Daddy dating somebody, Daddy has a wife. So that was kind of like, I didn't like being put in that position.
Well, why didn't he tell her?
That part. So that's where I feel like I slipped up. I'm like, oh man, that was your responsibility, and I really did a lot of labor there for you. So I let him know now. I'm like, listen, whatever babies you guys might pop out, don't look to me. You know, that's the conversation that you gotta have with her. If she has a sibling on the way, I can't do your dirty work.
But you guys are cool with the wife and the.
We're civil. We're civil.
I just can't imagine, like, because I'm a single parent, you know, her father, I don't know, but he lives in my state, so I can imagine, like, if the father of your child is somewhere else, your daughter doesn't see them all the time, is married out to a woman that you don't really know, and then sending them away every summer, and you know the routine, you know her routine, you know what she needs, you know what she eats, you know what she, and like there's been all this space and time between their relationship. I don't know like how often they talk, whatever. And then sending your kid over there. I mean, actually, my mom I know felt like that a lot in the summertime. I would get sent to Texas to go spend time with my family there, and I could like she would feel like yeah, like are you okay? You eating? Did you eat 3 meals? Like especially I don't know like she's 8 now, right? Yeah. So but when she's younger, even younger, like does he know how to take care of her? Is he gonna bathe her? Like all those things.
It's pretty anxiety inducing to think about because this summer is actually the first time that we've worked our way up to overnight visits. All the court stuff has been a recent transaction. So before then, it was just, visits, but I was still always there, or if he did take her during the day, I knew that she was coming back.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't like you were just...
Right. Is that because that was on his request, or you didn't want her to spend the night? Or?
Well, it didn't work out, you have to be very present to co-parent. And I just want to say, by no means am I bashing anybody, but I can't fill in the gaps and add events that just haven't transpired. It requires effort on both parts. And that was part of the reason that I chose to go to court, because I feel like while it is absolutely essential, the importance of having a male figure in a child's life and a female figure is detrimental, I'm not going to let that be the reason I allow you to come in and out at your leisure. We're going to put some routine and schedule behind this, or you're not going to see her at all, because I'll be damned if I have a daughter that has daddy issues, because this is a revolving door situation. And so that's when we went to court. And that was also, it's a hard thing being in a courtroom in front of a judge, even though you haven't done anything wrong and you're going advocating for your child, because your entire family is a stack of papers right now, and somebody's making a decision and they don't even know you. Right. And him being a military member, at the end of the day, we live in America, that looks very patriotic and wholesome on paper, stacked up against the model.
Right.
So for that reason, I waited 7 years before I took him to court, because I wanted the judge to see, hey, listen, he hasn't been gone because of the military. It's not a deployment that's been keeping him away. I have been pulling double duty for 7 years.
Just because.
And mind you, I know how the military works. I grew up in the military. You get leave. They make you take leave at a certain point. You can't just rack up your days to infinity. And so that's why we went to court. And that's why I said that we were only civil, because it's just, I can't be friends with somebody that's not putting forth the same effort that I am. I'm going to respect you because you're still her father, but we are not friends.
Well, because she's the most important thing in your life.
Right.
And when you share that with someone else and you don't feel like they're putting forth the effort that you want to do, you can't help but feel a little.
Right.
I mean, in general,
Pissed.
I wouldn't even have a homegirl that I thought was like a half-ass mom.
Right.
I wouldn't be friends with the guy that I was like, so how often do you see? I'll ask the guy, do you have kids? Where does that kid live? How often do you see that guy? If it's the answers are not up to par, in my opinion, I'm not gonna like you like that.
Like, same. If I ever, I mean, obviously before I had a kid, I was very selfish, and I knew right away I didn't want to talk to anybody with kids. I want to be number one. I'm not interested in seeing that drop down wallet of, and this is little Timmy when he's eating. I was like, no, if you have a kid, I don't want any parts of you. But obviously, now that I'm a mother, I've changed, I've grown up, I've evolved. I would definitely entertain the idea of somebody with a kid, but my first line of questions are going to be just like yours. So, do you have kids? How often do you see them? Where are they? What's their favorite color? What's your teacher's name? You know,
Right,
things
right,
that
right.
a
Only
day-to-day parent knows,
knows.
not a weekend parent.
Right,
You know,
right.
so. But Lily's 8. She's old enough to speak up. She has an iPad so that I can FaceTime her, and she's always available and accessible to me. So I know that if anything were to happen, my baby can reach me.
Right.
You know, he may not be the best dad in the world, but he's not a criminal. You know, I don't think that he would ever harm her.
How is it raising, you know, a daughter or just a child? Like, I know you don't live here anymore, but in New York City, because like when I got pregnant, I actually was living in New York, and I left.
Gotta go.
I thought I was pregnant, and then I was like, her father lived in LA, my family lives in LA. I was like, there's no reason for me to be here. I think I wanted to stay so bad. I knew that I needed that support, and I also couldn't imagine raising a child here, even if maybe he was here. It's just like living in New York I love New York. It's one of my favorite cities in the whole world, and I want to actually move back here at some point. But raising a child here, like yesterday on the train, I saw the lady with a baby stroller, a newborn, and then she had a 4-year-old, and then she had another. I was like, how?
I saw somebody with a dog.
I was like,
why?
I was like, you are the shit, because I don't even know how you got down
Now
here.
imagine that in winter though, and like
Yeah.
the steps
I
are icy and
Hot, like when it's August or
And like
winter.
even like because you're a model too, like trying to get to castings, and like, did you bring her with you?
I
Like,
do.
and like, yeah, how, like, because I mean, I audition. I'm an actor too, and I audition. I've had to bring Irie sometimes and ask strangers, like, hey, can you just sit here for like 5 minutes with her? She's fine. Just,
Yeah.
you know, like, and that's kind of scary too. Like, oh my god, I'm leaving her with this stranger. Like, I think they're cool, right? They're cool, right? Those cameras.
Yeah.
So like, what was that like? Like,
I'm
New York.
fortunate enough that by the time I first brought my daughter to New York, she was maybe 6,
Oh.
5 or 6. So she was able to walk.
Walk
She
around,
was able
okay.
to keep up with me. She got with the program. I always bring her scooter up when I have her with me so that she can keep up with because like 2 of my steps are 10 of hers. But yeah, I would take her to castings with me, and she knew the deal. I would always bring like a Rubik's Cube or something to entertain her mind. I'd bring a few books, a few snacks. All right, I'm making that 5 minutes. Another time I had her with me over the summer, and I had booked a job for Jordan's, and I was like, okay, well, I got my kid with me, and they were so awesome. They were like, I bet, well, let's fly you both out then. So she was with me in
That's
Chicago.
amazing.
They had somebody in-house that was able to watch her and, you know, take her on a tour around the city while mom was working.
Oh wow.
Granted, every job doesn't do that.
Right,
We're
right.
still offering, so-
Yeah.
but it was really cool to have that experience and be able to have her close by. I was like, oh, this is what it feels like being a working mom. So,
How did you get into modeling?
I was asked if I could model for a lady in Germany. I was working in retail at the time, and she was designing these kind of vesty things. And she gave me $50. She was like, it's not much, this is all I have. And she gave me $50. And that kind of planted the seed. And then I went to Model Mayhem, which is like, I don't recommend that for
That's
anybody.
like,
But that was how I started, you know. And from there, it was just that ripple effect. One photographer sees your work, he wants to work with you. As soon as you guys do that shoot, all his photographer buddies are like, whoa, new face.
Right.
And it just kind of spreads like that. And
Did you start modeling before or after you had it?
I started before, and then I had her, and then I went to the back burner. Yeah. And then I got more serious about it after I had her. I was like, okay, there's going to be a really short window here where I can make this work, or where I miss the opportunity altogether.
Would you say that's your passion?
Expressing myself is my passion, and that comes in many forms. Right now, that happens to be modeling in a lot of ways. It's also writing. It's also painting. I need to be able to express modeling allows me to do that.
Sorry, I got distracted.
Same.
So we're in guys, we're like in a WeWork right now, and there's a lot
Happening.
There's a lot of people walking around and stuff, things happening. What was I gonna ask you? What is your daughter, like, how did your daughter do modeling? Like, you know, our kids want to be just like their moms and stuff. Like, is she interested in modeling, and like how, also, because like, so for me, like modeling, I'm wondering, like, I know there's a lot of things that go into it. Obviously, you have to take care of your body. Then there's people that have, like, you know, body dysmorphia or body or eating disorders, and like being around that whole environment. And also your daughter looking to that. Does she feel like she wants to be a model, or do you have to have conversations with her about, you know, bodies and that you have yours and that's your body, and like, you know, I'm just curious how that works as a model and mom. If that's a conversation.
I am very open with my daughter because I don't want her to have the insecurities that I have. We are only given one body, so I try not to comment on her traits or her grown body so much because, A, if I bring awareness to it, now she has that awareness brought to it, and I don't want her forming opinions about a body that ultimately she's not going to be able to change. You know, she has to learn to love it. That being said, I'm also really mindful about when I'm looking in the mirror or when I'm stepping on the scale, because I'm in a very numbers-based line of work, but an 8-year-old can't compute that. So she might see mommy stepping on the scale and go, oh, you know, and then
is that how we value our beauty?
Right.
Our bodies.
She actually does not have a passion to model. I've asked her about it. I think that she would be great, you know, as most parents do. But she sat me down. She said, Mom, look, this is your passion. I love animals, okay? I want to work with animals.
That's awesome.
And I was like, okay. You know, how do you force at this point, I'm literally forcing her if I, after that, still try to make her do something. But yeah, it's very important to me that she sees me naked, that she sees me just being very accepting, because, you know, I'm raising a young girl in a world that is very critical about everything that makes her a woman, or you know.
How do you deal with that too in modeling and like all of that, like the judgment, and especially if you, I don't know what kind of insecurities you had growing up. Were they about your body, or was it just?
Absolutely, and it's crazy because honestly, I'm in a very like superficial kind of line of work. It's totally based on looks. I mean, you have to be easy to work with, and you know all that stuff. But it's very much a looks oriented thing. And so sometimes I get into my head, I look in the mirror, and I know my angles. It's my job to know my angles, my good side, my bad side, how to work the space. And I can overthink to the point that I look in a mirror and I say to myself, hey, do I really look this thin? Or am I just so good at what I do now that I know what angles to turn to? Am I thin or am I not? And I can easily go down a rabbit hole obsessing over things like that. But I have a counselor now that I talk to, and a therapist, and he tells me, so listen, don't get on the scale. You know, I have a feeling at this point, you know what you're doing and you're experienced enough. And, you know, we try to get to that next step for so long, whether it's in modeling or whatever our career is, that we don't realize that we're in survival mode. And so sometimes I have to consciously get myself out of that and tell myself, hey, listen, with that way of thinking, you're good now. Like, you already made it. It's okay to relax a little bit, not fall off, but I don't have to stress and obsess the same way that I used to.
So you used to be very conscious of your weight.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm almost 6 feet tall. I was always tall. I had to grow into everything. My ears, my feet were the first thing that grew. And I was so lanky. I would always hover because I didn't feel comfortable with my height. And the thing now is I go to a chiropractor like 3 times a week, because when you're a tall girl and you always hunch, well, by the time you get into your late 20s, early 30s, it takes a toll on your spine. So now I'm physically undoing all those years of, you know, not being comfortable with my height or the things that.
You mentioned too, I'm through following you and watching your transparency, you mentioned that you used to be a cutter. And is that, what started that, and how old were you? And like, how do you talk to your daughter about that? Does she know about that?
Yeah, because she sees my scars and she asks. I started cutting when I was in middle school. And the event that triggered it was so silly. You know, my younger sister had a boyfriend. Her and I both did. We were dating these two basketball players, and they were best friends, and then they were dating sisters, so we thought we were cool. And my younger sister had her first kiss with this guy before I did. And I was mortified because I put such an expectation and weight on my shoulders that I'm the older sister, I'm supposed to show her the ropes. Oh, I'm humiliated. My little sister beat me to it. I wasn't resentful towards my sister or anything. It was just this pressure that I put on myself, and I didn't know what to do with those emotions. And so I would always cut, never with the intention of killing myself, but it was a form of punishment.
How did that, like, you thought, like, what was the moment where you were like, I'm going to pick this up and this is going to be my tool? Like, did you see it somewhere else, or?
Not even. Like, I remember I used to write like really dark, sad, terrible poetry. Like, I threw the diary away, but one line was, I write red for the blood I shed.
Oh,
it was really just dark and miserable. You know, my eyes were filled with tears, and I don't know, honest to God, why I thought that was going to be a solution, because it's not. I mean, all of it is a misguided attempt at regulating your emotions. And I started drinking at an early age, too. I was drinking at 13. Because it was an escape, you know, you didn't feel anything when you drank. All the feelings come back afterwards, but for that moment, you're able to escape. And I think that that's always what I was looking for, is an escape.
And so did your mom ever or your dad ever became aware of your cutting?
Not until my senior year of high school. I never cut in a place that was an exposed area, because I did, contrary to what a lot of people say, I didn't do it for attention. I didn't want anybody to know. Nobody knew. You know, I was prom queen. I was captain of my track team. I had all A's. My teachers loved me. So I also felt guilty that I was doing this behind closed doors, because I had so much to be grateful for. Why couldn't I be happy? And senior year, I started drinking. I was in my room. I was having a pity party. I was going through that, like these guilt loops in hell. And I said, I deserve to die. I just started repeating that over and over in my head. It was definitely the alcohol at that point, because I had never. Being suicidal, and self-mutilation are two different things. They overlap, but they're still two different things. But the combination of alcohol and the emotions and everything that I'm going through, I took a knife from my parents' cabinet drawer and I just started cutting on my arm. And my parents heard me sobbing, and they broke into the bathroom where I was. And as a parent now, I can only imagine how their heart had to just drop. And that was when I first got introduced to it. So that was why I stayed Germany after I graduated high school, and then that was his dad. Because I was originally set to go to University of Texas. That's my one regret. You know, I never finished school. I was started a little bit. Had a huge fork in the road.
So then, what was your journey away from that? Like, was therapy really what did it, or was it your daughter? Like, do you ever have those thoughts of going back? Because I mean, I don't have. I've never self-harmed. I don't know what the process is in that, and like how you move through it and navigate through it, or is it something you always constantly have to check? Kind of like, you know, someone who might have who has an eating disorder. Like, it's kind of something you live with forever in ways. You have to unlearn and really check yourself. So I don't know if that's the same with self-harm, or do you switch self-harms? You know, it's kind of like when you, like a drug addict, they stop doing that drug and then they start smoking cigarettes instead. Like, do you switch addictions, or?
I think over a period of time, I did. I wasn't treating the source. I was just finding other coping mechanisms that still weren't healthy. You know, maybe I wasn't cutting now, but I was hitting the bottle too much, or I was partying too much, still trying to numb myself to whatever degree. That first introduction to counseling, it didn't work. I didn't have the language still to express what I was feeling, and I wasn't comfortable opening up to this strange man. I didn't feel like he knew me or he could relate to me. So for that year, I really went to put my parents at ease, because I knew that they needed that. I after what they just saw,
Yeah,
if they
peace of mind.
send that baby off to school in Texas, because mind you, I'm in Germany, so I'm going to a college. I haven't even had a chance to like tour the campus and do all that cool stuff that kids get to do here in the States when
You're
you're
close,
just
right?
everything's stateside. So I knew the thought of sending me now terrified them. They go to counseling.
Mhm.
So I wasn't really invested in it. I was going through the motions. I was doing it for the wrong reasons, and I didn't have the language to really talk about what I was feeling. Not until I revisited counseling as an adult, which has been like in the past 2 years, was I able to actually see the benefit. Lily was the actual catalyst that triggered that change because I could not be a mom that was still harming myself in that way. So when I became pregnant with her, I stopped cutting. So I didn't cut for 8 years now.
Isn't it beautiful how kids do that? Like, because they really hold the mirror, and it's like suddenly you have all this responsibility,
Right.
and you're like, I don't want to pass this on to you.
Right.
What can I do? I need to help myself.
But in the same breath, something that I have to hold myself accountable to is great. Lily might be the person that triggered that change, but that's too big of a responsibility to put on my daughter's shoulders. So I need to make sure that I'm continuing on this path of betterment for myself as well, because that's too much responsibility to put on a child.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear you talk about like if I think about like my teenage years, like junior high school, I also wrote a lot of really weird, dark,
Right.
sad
I think
poetry.
it's hormones.
I know that has to be
Because I was
That's
writing
very
some
dark.
weird shit. I looked at some journals and I had some pictures I drew, and I was like,
What? I know. And I was just you talking about it. It's like taking me back to those times in my life, and I'm like, I'm happy that we're here having this conversation because now with that reference, we can better address our daughters in those
Right.
ages. Because I think it's true. I think like those preteen, teenage years, there's all this weird hormonal shit happening. There's all these feelings that you're feeling without the tools to express themselves. So I guess that's expressed in like those really dark, bad poetry journals.
That's the attempt.
Right. But also like I had a cutting phase when I was in like junior high, and I think it was because like I was at a like small private school. We all read this book that the kids were cutting and drinking. So we're like, yeah, this is so. But
so do you think it was more for attention or
No,
just
well,
because that's what?
I don't think it was an attention, but it dawned on me recently that because I asked myself, why was I doing that? Because my mom, like, I have a scar too. It goes on this side. My mom noticed it. She said something to me, like in that time, and I remember harming myself and feeling like some sort of release.
Right.
Like I had control over the pain. If I could control it, then maybe like what I was feeling inside didn't hurt as much. And it dawned on me like that, because that was so long ago, but I also drank really early. I just thought I was wild. I'm wild now, I just thought I was wild then, but I didn't ever associate it with a numbing of anything, because again, you look back at your childhood, you're like, I had parents, I had a house, I had food, like what bitch would be tripping, But I realized I was like, when I think of harming myself and how that brought some kind of satisfaction or some weird kind of like, I don't know, like I think about how it has it transferred to other ways. And I think about like my patterns, like how my patterns have been sexually and interacting with men and like having just like unnecessary sex.
Yeah.
And how that had almost was my graduation to self-inflicted pain. Like I have control over this pain.
Right.
Even though I never associated it until recently.
That's what we were talking about, how self-harm can be. You can self-harm through sex.
Through sex.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Self-sabotage has been a very recurring theme in my life. Whether it was through the drinking or through physical harming or through the sex. And again, very recently I realized, that a lot of people talk about like, healing our inner child. And I think that that's a reason a lot of my relationships failed. I was introduced to sex too early. I was having sex for the wrong reasons. And so my way of thinking was, okay, well, if I give you me, like this is like I'm giving you me, right? In return, I need you to like nurture me and make me like feel safe and protected.
Love me.
But no, it was a sexual transaction, or especially now you're talking friends with benefits. Might not even be a title on there. It's like, oh no,
they might not even really be your friend.
Right. And so, not that everybody doesn't want to be, feel cared for and taken care of, but for me, it came from this deeper place. I was actually looking for looking to them to heal my inner child.
It was transactional in a way.
But I was never getting what I wanted out of the deal. So then I felt shorted and regretful. Like,
Right, why'd I do that?
I can't take back what I gave you, and here I am feeling shorted. And it transpired in a very ugly way. Like my relationship suffered, and my sexual experiences also suffered a lot because of stuff.
That stuff that like it's not until now, like in your 30s or once you become a parent, that you're able to like maybe identify it.
Right.
Well, because when you think of self-harm, you think of like something
Literally,
physical,
right?
Something you can see. You don't think about like other ways that you self-harm through your diet, through sex, through your relationships, through patterns. Like
Drinking, drugs.
and I really did not think about self-harm in a sexual way until we had that conversation the other day.
But it's
when we were
also
talking
power.
about our sexual trauma.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, I have been a self-harmer in that way for probably since the beginning of sex for me. Because of the reasons why I started having sex and the attention that I wanted. And it was never, we had a guest on and she was talking about how, like, we were put on this earth as man and woman to procreate. Literally, sex is purely, at the root of it, is just for procreation. If you think about it. Everything else is just fun.
Right.
And when she said it to me that way, I was like, that's so true. And we share our body. I mean, not that like every person I have sex with is going to be my baby daddy.
Right.
But like we share ourselves so freely with people and exchange so much energy like it's nothing. And then wonder why we're left feeling like depleted when we share ourselves with somebody like that. When it's really like the most like sacred act you can share with someone. Really, truly. And like I'm definitely been an advocate for, do what you feel.
Free love.
Fuck what you want. Fuck what you
Like,
want. Do that. And I still feel that way, but check in with yourself.
Right.
Truly check in with yourself. Because 9 times out of 10,
That's
you're not
how
feeling
you feel.
so great. You're not feeling so great about all the things you're doing and the people you're sharing yourself with. You're feeling depleted.
It's just sad it's taken 15 years. It's just been fucking for about 15 plus 2.
But at least we're finding out now. Like it may have taken 15 years, but it could. Like some people are still figuring this out, and they might be a little bit older. So I'm definitely grateful to have come to this point now, this point of awareness, or like I guess awakening. Everybody's empowered by different things, especially as women, and so for that reason, I don't know. Part of me also wanted to be one of the guys. I wanted to be able to have sex as freely and as often with no strings attached, just to say that I could. Or because
I guess me too.
Part of me was jealous that they could just do it and be okay.
And it kind of gives you a sense of power. Like I don't know. Like I'm not thinking about it.
To check in, like you said, when I was honest with myself, I was like, it takes me so long to really build a connection with somebody. Like pictures don't do anything for me. I go to castings and I'm with the most beautiful people in the world. So there has to be a connection outside of that. So casual sex really doesn't do anything for me. And I felt bad about that for so long because, we're so progressive and that might be an archaic way of thinking. Oh, well, then you can have casual sex too. And yeah, they can. But if I'm being really honest, it's not for me. I don't feel good afterwards, and it's the energy exchange.
I guess it's interesting because, like, discussing sex and sexuality, which brings us to our topic, and we wanted to talk about. It really, because I've had similar feelings of like to be free and empowered and doing this, and this doesn't define me. But like you said, leaving something feeling depleted or having certain feelings, I wonder how much that affects how we feel about ourselves, because sexuality isn't separate from having sex. I feel very comfortable in my skin. If I could take this dress off and work around WeWork with my panties, I'd be really happy. Just grabbing some coffee, guys. And it's
Don't you look at these things.
Relax. And it's not about attention for me. It's just about how I feel comfortable. Like if someone was going to photograph me, I'd feel more comfortable if I was naked.
Okay.
It would be. It's easier for me to feel prettier naked than like if you're going to take a picture of my face. I don't know why. It's just how. But I'm wondering because I think that for so long I'm comfortable in my skin that I thought I'm supposed to be comfortable and having casual sex too. You know what I
Right.
mean? And there's so many limits.
That one goes with the other.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, well, I am progressive, and I do believe in free love, and so I have to, I have to have casual sex, right? Like, fuck, it's fine. But it's interesting how like our sexuality is so defined by our sexual encounters and how much sex we have, and in fact, they're not really related at all. But it's so tainted and so intertwined. But as a mom, because we all are, there is boundaries on how we're supposed to be now, because your mother's like on our sexuality and how we're supposed to portray publicly how sexual we are, like how sexy we are,
or how sexualized we are. Like you said, like when we were talking about what we should talk about today, you mentioned that people are totally fine with you posing nude when you're modeling, and it's beautiful, and whatever fantasy they build in their mind of who you are. But if you take a picture naked with your daughter, then it's problematic for people, or they feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Like, why do you think that is?
I think two things. One, so now we get married for different reasons than we got married back in the day. Back in the day, women had to get married because you didn't have any rights as a husband, you couldn't own property, et cetera, et cetera. So you had to get married. And a lot of times, the bashing comes from other women because of the same archaic way of thinking. That woman that was free and giving away the milk without making the man buy the cow, well, now you're dipping into our pot. This woman is out here doing this and being so free, then we're not going to be able to get married off. And I think that's why, it's obviously it's subconscious, but you look at how that has unfolded to today and why sometimes these women are bashing other women because it was really just like archaic way of thinking of, if you're that way, you're going to take our men and they're not going to want us anymore.
Damn, I never really thought about that.
And then the other one, I was at this screening recently from a friend of mine. His name is Joe Lumberjack. This is Instagram, my bad, Joe Lumberjack. I went to a screening and we were talking about similar subject matters and taboo topics. And it came up and I loved how it was phrased, and it's so true. And I think that might even be the reason I don't like the porn when it's like two women, is because a lot of times when you see sex scenes with women, the woman isn't the subject, she's the object. The man is the subject. The man is the one that's controlling the narrative and getting what he wants. So moving forward to my modeling photos, if I'm posing, well, I'm the object again. You like it because my sexuality is fitting into your fantasy. When I own my sexuality now and take ownership of that and make myself the subject, well, you can't objectify me in the same way now. I'm not arching my back, so my nudity isn't performative, which means you don't want to see it. Right? I had people even tell me that it was a form of child abuse to be naked in front of my daughter.
That you birth naked.
Right, and unfortunately, it was other women that were having these, sharing these comments with me. And, so many times we get mad at somebody because they're doing or living a way that we can't, or that we feel like we can't. And I'm never going to stifle myself or make myself smaller in any kind of way to make somebody else more comfortable. Because I did that for so long. I made myself the butt of the jokes because I knew I was so intimidating, or I had resting bitch face, and I really wanted to be likable. And so the way to do that was to make other people laugh. So I would start to joke on myself and kind of put myself down, which was all cool and dandy, until I started to believe my own words. So I can't do that anymore. I can't,
So when people do come at you, what do you do? Do you take the time to educate them? What do you even do in that situation? Because there's not, they're keyboard gangsters, I like to call them.
Right.
Like how do you deal with that? Like, do you just ignore it, don't let it affect your day, keep it moving?
I'm human, so I can sit here and act like, oh, words don't sting. They do, especially when somebody says something that might touch on a personal trigger for you anyway, then it just gets amplified. So a lot of times I'll take into consideration who it's coming from. Sometimes it's like a stupid little bot account or somebody with no photo that's following. I don't know. Those kind of people I'm not going to give the time of day. Sometimes it's people that are asking sincere questions. One person said, well, I get you want to be naked for your daughter and all that, but then just go and be that. I have an issue with you, though, putting it on the internet. And my response to that was, these other people and adults on the internet, those are the minds that I'm trying to change, So yeah, I'm directly teaching my daughter something, but I would also like to introduce a new perspective to, you adults scrolling on my profile looking at me, because nudity does not have to be a bad thing. I grew up in Germany. Our newspaper, our beauty of the week was a butt-naked woman, full frontal, full bush, so I was exposed to body hair at a very natural age. Kids are topless, girls and boys. You know why? Because they don't have boobs. Their bodies are the same way.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. How do you feel about like nudity with children on Instagram? Because it's been like it's conflicted. Like I know like people have messaged me like, oh my god, you posted like a video of Irie topless. I'm like,
well, what is there? I know.
4.
People have messaged you,
right?
Mm-hmm. And like, or like you're like, it's not me, but it's like other people.
But you're the one messaging me, so I think that's like.
Well, they messaged me because they felt uncomfortable and they wanted me to think about it.
Well, I always encourage people. Why is this making you uncomfortable? Mm-hmm. And also, we can't live our lives in fear of predators. I mean, shit, they're everywhere. They're at the fucking family cookout. Let's be real. Like when shit happens, it's 99.9 times people that.
Yeah, it's not a stranger.
It's not somebody hiding in the bushes. The pedophiles come in all forms, and they don't wear a sign. So like, am I going to live my entire life? Because I breastfed for a long time, and it didn't bother me. I would breastfeed at a restaurant, and my daughter was turned 2, and she could pull my titty out wherever. I'm like, she's going to eat, and I'm not putting a blanket over her face,
Right.
And I had friends say stuff like, the waiter's looking at you. I'm like, fuck you later, I don't give a fuck, But it's interesting that I don't know, on the internet. It's a strange place for the kids, and because there are weirdos and people. Even the other day, when I was looking at YouTube, which I had to catch it out, and she was looking at something like kids. It was like bedtime routines, and there was a kid. There was like a girl, and she's like hugging a teddy bear, hugging a teddy bear, laying down. There's like just weird clips of kids going to bed.
Like these weird mashups of these.
Yeah, and I didn't get it, and then I looked at the views, and they're so high, and I was just like. I don't know what made this pop into my mind, because obviously I'm not a pedophile, but I'm like, I can just see that someone could like
watching kids getting tucked in.
Yeah.
Like, that being their thing.
Yeah. And even there's like some bathtub stuff on there, and for me, like it went there because now that my kid's getting older, and that you have to be aware, but it's just like to what extent? You know what I mean? I've had people. My daughter was like fully clothed on a stripper pole because my friend had one at her house, and I thought it was hilarious. And I put it on Instagram, and I got so many text messages. I'm like, calm the fuck down. There's a pole at the playground, first of all. And she doesn't associate a pole with like being, I'm not putting fucking pennies in her diaper.
Right.
And my dad told me one time I was dancing and his friend kept putting pennies in her diaper. And look, I'm not a stripper, And then there's Cindy Lou from down the street whose dad was a minister and, was tight locked, and now she's a stripper. So as a child, I don't think they're not aware of shit like that until adults make them aware.
Right.
So I'm very conscious of that. Like my child has no scope of that, and I don't want to put that on our social bullshit, on our kids. So I don't believe in that. Obviously, I'm not going to let her be butt naked on Instagram.
Right.
But
do you think? What if your daughter wanted to pose naked on Instagram at like, I don't know, 18 or younger, even? I mean, modeling. Even if she did want to be modeling. Models are 15 years old these days.
I know, but
they're doing
right.
full-grown campaigns. Like even women. I don't know. What
maybe like sheer
are there
fashions?
rules for that? Like young girls posing nude for like high fashion campaigns? Is that a thing?
I didn't start modeling after I was already 18, so I can't even speak on.
I'm just curious.
I would hope so. They can probably get away with doing stuff that reads sexual and is implied, or maybe if they have the consent of the parent, if they're like 16, 17, I don't know how that goes.
Didn't an underage child pose for Playboy in France, and it was a big thing when he died? It was like someone known too.
I remember that. But if your daughter wanted to do that because you're open about it,
right.
into it, how would you feel about that?
I would ask her why, because I think the intention behind it really matters. Like for one, something can be perceived as sexual, whether that was my intention or not, right? Like I could just post a selfie and somebody's like, "Oh, you're so sexy," and I could be butt naked. Somebody's like, "Oh, you're so sexy." Mm-hmm. So just because she's naked doesn't necessarily mean that it's sexual. So I would ask her, okay, what's the concept? What's it for? Why are you doing it? Do I want her spread eagle on the internet at any point in her life? No. I always want it to be like tasteful and, I don't know, have a reason behind it. I hope that our relationship is open and fluid enough that if that ever comes up, we're able to have a full-blown conversation about it. Right. It's kind of like what you were saying, you know, okay, get the pain in my diaper, I'm not a stripper. Like talking to my daughter about suicide and mental health isn't going to make her suicidal. Talking to my daughter about nudity isn't going to make her jump on a pole naked. You know, not having those conversations, however, might open up the door to a lot of that dark stuff that we're trying to avoid.
I have another question. I don't know, like, what's your sexual preference?
I'm bi.
Okay. Do you discuss that with your daughter?
Yeah, she went to, okay. So we went to our first Pride in Atlanta, and it was really cool. She's super young, yeah, so she doesn't really remember that one too much. And then we went to New York Pride, and somehow we ended up in the parade. It was totally by accident, and we were walking behind one of the floaties, and they were giving us stuff to hand out to the audience. And I was like, how cool, she could be like really interactive. You know, it's sunglasses, it's like little bead necklaces that have, you know, the rainbow pride stuff on there. And she's throwing stuff out, and then I realized we were behind the safe sex floaty, so my baby was throwing out condoms. As open and progressive as I am, I was like, oh, hold on, safe sex is great, but let mama throw those. So she knows that the rainbow flag is the gay flag. She knows that mommy's bi. Her only question to me was, okay, well, mom, can I ask you something? Why didn't you marry daddy? And then I had to let her know that, hey, we love you very much, but we don't love each other. But we love you, you know, and.
But she knows okay, so when you say she knows mommy's bi, does she know what that means? Does she know, like,
has she seen you in, like, with a woman? Like, in like, romantic
no, so I'm very mindful about who I bring around my daughter and in what capacity. So any of the girlfriends that she met, we never carried ourselves in a manner that let her know anything other than that's mommy's friend. Right? Not because I was hiding my sexuality, but because before I introduce you as a partner to my daughter, I need to know that this is something a little bit more stable. And then my relationships kind of, and this is when I stopped dating because I realized that if all my relationships are capping at a year and a half, I'm not. I got some stuff that I got to work out. And I think that too is kind of like when relationships start to get serious. Like when you get to that year mark,
that's when you know, right? Oh,
are we or aren't we or whatever? And that's when mine always fizzled out. My ex happened to be a man. He was the first man I dated in 5 years, and we got to a year and a half ish, and I took that step and I introduced her to him, and then it ended up biting me in the butt. And so I'm trying not to lead with fear now because, like, oh, dang, first time I did introduce her and it didn't work out so well. But kids are so strong and resilient. She took it better than I. Do you know what she said to me? She said, Mom, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry your relationship didn't work out.
Aww, so deep.
Yeah.
For it,
yeah. So she understands that love is love, that two women can love each other, that two men can love each other, that one day mommy might love a woman. She just, as long as I answered her question on why me and her dad went together, that was really all she cared about.
Do you want more kids?
Before I had her, I said I was going to have 4 boys and I was going to be a super mom and all this other bullshit.
So you have one, you're like, damn,
right.
It's a lot of work.
And now, having a daughter, I'm like, oh, God really knows what to do. I have no idea what I would have done before. I don't know what I would have taught him. I'm glad I had a daughter. That being said, having her so young really threw a monkey wrench in my timeline. I have siblings that are 4 years older and 13 months younger, and we're really close-knit. I have seen it work when people have those big gaps between their kids, and it still is a great dynamic. But I do worry how that would change the sibling dynamic. If she's 8 now, I would have to pop out a baby within the next 2 years, and I'm very happy with how my stomach looks. So,
maybe not.
Right. I mean, if I'm with a woman, she has the same ovaries I do, she can carry the baby, and then we can open up that conversation.
Right. But as long as you're doing the caring and...
Yeah, I don't know. I'm totally cool with like adopting, being a foster mom. There's so many ways to care. So I'm blessed if I don't. If I do, then God bless me more.
Do you have any other questions?
No, not necessarily. Other than I think you really covered the sexuality, and I think it's a given that we're in a patriarchy. So there's a lot of double standards.
Right, like virgin testing. That's strictly done on girls. But virgin testing. I went to school with the girls.
Test your hind.
Yeah.
Who's doing the testing?
Like you go to doctors, you go to hospitals. And the thing is,
Your mother can make you do that.
yeah, you can break your hymen falling off a horse.
Yeah, so
that doesn't mean that you're not a virgin.
Are doctors still doing it?
Maybe.
I don't know, but this was, I know, this is my 10-year reunion is coming up, but still, there was a girl that was sneaking out at the time, her parents found out, and they thought that she was maybe sleeping around, and they took her to the doctors, and they made her get a virgin test, which is like, I feel like that would be really traumatizing, because the daughter was a virgin, so she hadn't been sneaking out, she hadn't whatever, and now you're making your child, look, I hate going to get a pap, but I have to get it done, I can't imagine.
I think doctors shouldn't do it.
Right, but it's not done on boys. You're not worried about virgin testing for your son.
Well, there's no way.
Right.
Test.
But
People still
wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
No, women bear all of the blame. We have to bear the children. We have to take the birth control. We have to do all the means of with our body,
we have to be a pure, sanctified unicorn.
We gotta do it all. We have to
drop it like it's hot and twerk and bust it up. But how are we supposed to learn these tricks if we're so pure and holy and can't?
I'm so sick of this shit. I'm so sick of this shit. I can't. I don't even know how to navigate it.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, it's just such a double standard, and it's so hard to be like a multifaceted woman. They were giving Kim K all the trouble. They were giving Beyonce trouble when she became a mother as being sexual. It's like, fuck, if Beyonce and Kim K can't get away with it, they put all my sexuality behind me.
No way.
And I'm so tired of people acting like the vagina is going to stretch out or get loose. Half of the guys that say that stuff don't have the physical capacity to stretch a woman out. A. B, the vagina is like a muscle, right?
Yeah.
So it's not this thing that gets looser and looser. It's more like a scrunchie, it can stretch and then it contracts again, So
it's just a way to fuck with us and a way to be like, she's a whore. That's the whole thing. And that's the biggest thing insult a guy could throw.
Oh, absolutely.
She's a loosey whore.
Mm-hmm.
She's like,
and not even guys, women too.
Right, and that's fucked up too. We use it against each other.
It's always sexual. The way we demean women is always based in sex.
Do you watch House of Cards?
I haven't watched this season.
I haven't watched it in a while either.
I love that. I know.
But before that, I was watching it religiously.
So amazing.
There was one episode, Kevin Spacey says, everything is about sex except for sex. Sex is about power. There's some truth there. Yeah, unfortunately. That's true.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely.
I appreciate that conversation. So many things in my mind now. So many enlightened moments.
Yeah. And thank you for coming down here and hanging out. And I'm so happy I got to meet you in person.
Likewise, it was so good.
Talk and communicate and see, you actually hear people speak and you're like, oh wow. Not you just never know. You just never know when you're meeting someone, how your energy's going to connect. And that's why I love podcasting, because it gives you the opportunity to just connect with people that you might never have connected with.
And you can't.
I could have just been kept scrolling on the Instagram,
right.
And on your Instagram, I know what she's saying.
You can be anybody on social media, but face to face, if you're a really good actor, great. But it's harder to fake that energy.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to fake that energy.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's true. What is our water signs? We became into
you're Scorpio and you're
read the first.
Let's just go first one.
Right.
only one person at Soho House.
I know.
One person at a time.
Oh my god. All right, you guys. Well, please tell us where to find you. www.alexundone.com. Instagram also alexundone.com. And if you guys are in Atlanta, I'm hosting my very first workshop, Build Your Brand, Beginner's Guide to Modeling. So check it out. I have a lot to teach you guys. When is that?
August 17th.
Oh, cool.
I'm really excited to go back to Atlanta. It's a great city.
You live there?
No, but I just have friends there. I have family there. Yeah.
It's Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you can find us at goodmoms_bad_choices or on the interweb at www.goodmoms_bad_choices.com. Subscribe to our newsletter, buy our merch,
Follow us, love us, subscribe.
Oh, write a review. If you have some time, go in and hit that review button on Apple
You have time.
Podcasts.
It takes 3 minutes.
Yeah,
or
if you've been
less.
listening and you haven't left a review, do us a favor, like a little review, give us that 5-star rating each. And have a wonderful week, you guys. Bye. Bye. Yay. Thank
And you guys are 5 out of 5 on your reviews too. I was creeping, yeah. Yeah.
I think someone gave us a 4 that bitch.
Oh my gosh. Someone did. No, you know what? She complained about the kids.